The Minnesota Vikings were just linked to a wild trade. I'm going to tell you all about it and all the context behind it that could make massive news for Vikings fans out there. Hit subscribe if you're looking for Vikings information, Vikings news, updates, takes, or anything NFC North related. That's what we're doing on this channel. Let's jump straight into the news and waste no time. Because a question that Vikings fans everywhere are asking is, how in the world do the Minnesota Vikings keep Brian Flores around? And as we've talked about on this channel before, many radio broadcasters I've listened to saying that the offense being a real threat is the thing that could entice him to stay in Minnesota. Now, obviously, if a head coaching gig like the Baltimore Ravens getting rid of John Harbaugh, if they go for Brian Flores, he's not gonna turn down a head coaching gig to stay in Minnesota. I think we all know that. But you think about Baltimore, that's the only one that's really kind of scary, because you got Baltimore, other ones are like Arizona, Atlanta, Tennessee. I don't know that Brian Flores would go for those ones. The Baltimore one's scary because John Harbaugh was there for like 18 years, right? Like 2 decades, basically. So how often does a head coaching gig open up for a team that is willing to commit to one person for that much time? So that one's a little bit scary. But you got other guys like Robert Saleh over in San Francisco. So there are other guys out there that are head coach that are interviewing for that head coach gig. All that to say, if you want to keep him as your DC and trying to convince him not to go elsewhere to, the Dallas Cowboys or something like that, if that's what you want to do, you've got all the opportunity in the world to go and get, we'll skip that part. Sorry. Go and get a quarterback, right? And I like J.J. McCarthy, but I have some genuine concerns about J.J. McCarthy as well. Per ESPN's Kevin Seifert, the Vikings are interested in adding a starting caliber hedge at quarterback in the event McCarthy doesn't take a step forward next season, which means they are committing to continue giving him an op, we think. But some of the links that I'm going to get to in a minute here might suggest otherwise. That being said, when I look at the data on J.J. McCarthy, oopsies, that one's showing up in the wrong spot there, but just ignore that. You can still see J.J. McCarthy at the very bottom of the composite QB rankings. As much as I like what J.J. McCarthy's done over the last few games of the season, where you can kind of say, hey, there's something there. When you look at the whole of the season and you compare him to everybody else, it's kind of scary. I mean, you look at him, he's near the bottom, nearly last place on total QBR. That's scary. Nearly last place on EPA per play. Toward the bottom on completion percentage over expected. Bad throw percentage, he's like number 2 in the NFL. Worst bad throw percentage. So I'm just saying, like, I'm not trying to dog on the guy. He's a young buck and he's learning and all that stuff. But there's a lot of other guys out there that the Minnesota Vikings have a shot at. The world is absolutely Kevin O'Connell's oyster right now. Look at the number of quarterbacks and look at some of the name recognition on this list of quarterbacks that could back up J.J. McCarthy. In some cases, maybe even be starters over J.J. McCarthy, be challengers for the role. Now, we'll wait and see throughout the offseason who they get and what Kevin O'Connell says based on who they get. Because obviously, if they go and get Jimmy Garoppolo, Case Keenum, he's going to be a backup. They're going to be backups, right? J.J. McCarthy's probably still going to be your starter, even over a guy like Jimmy G who went to the Super Bowl one time. I think the reality is that, a guy like Daniel Jones, if you see the Vikings go and get Daniel Jones, he's going to be starting, right? You would like to believe that's kind of the direction that they're going to go there. Not that I'm saying they're going to go there. There are a lot of names on this list, though. I'm curious. Let me know in the comments which of these guys you would want to be your backup quarterback behind J.J. McCarthy this next season. Several of you have been in the comments saying, go and get blank. And you've listed names of other guys that are not on this list you think that the Vikings should go after. I want to talk about one of them who I saw linked with the Minnesota Vikings as well as several other teams. And I'll give a disclaimer to that in a second too. But one of the other guys that I've seen commented that many of you have said is Aaron Rodgers. So let me know if you think that the Vikings should be going after Aaron Rodgers after what season he had in Pittsburgh. But this guy, This guy right here is not on the list because he's not going to be a free agent. However, there is growing speculation that he might be not, well, there's obviously more than growing speculation that he's not happy in Cincinnati. He's very much not happy in Cincinnati. There's no doubt about that. But what is really interesting is that this guy right here, Joe Burrow, might, for several reasons, actually be putting in a trade request in the near future. Okay? I'm just going to say that. The caveat this, until it comes from Adam Schefter, Ian Rappaport, Diana Rossini, Jordan Schultz, whatever, until it comes from one of those guys, right, or gals, this is just like a link, okay? It is exactly what I put in the title of the video. It's just a link. But check this out. This is from a Pittsburgh Steelers publication. The Bengals just wrapped up a 6-11 season with a disappointing loss to the Cleveland Browns on Sunday. Interestingly, the Browns have moved on from head coach Kevin Stefanski, but the Bengals will keep head coach Zach Taylor and director of player personnel. As the Bengals move forward with their current staff, this will mark the 8th season with Taylor as the head coach. A statement released by team president Mike Brown, the Bengals have full confidence that Tobin and Taylor are the right leaders to guide this team forward. Brown also noted that no one is out of the question. No move, is out of the question. Here's exactly what he said. We are taking a hard look at everything we do as we approach this offseason with focused determination to build a championship caliber roster that wins consistently. We are fully committed to delivering results that match the pride, passion, and expectations of this organization and our fans. There has been growing speculation that the Bengals could look to trade quarterback Joe Burrow for a king's ransom during the 2026 offseason. Burrow has been visibly disgruntled with the state of the team, and statements like this from Brown will only fuel speculation. I then saw in the article and in several articles around this, teams like the Los Angeles Rams replacing Matthew Stafford with Joe Burrow because obviously Stafford's on his way out in terms of age, so maybe he's got one more year in him. I don't know, but Joe Burrow obviously has a lot more years left on him, and so if you are gonna, go for it, the Rams have 2 first-round draft picks they could trade up pretty easily to try and bring in Joe Burrow. So that's like a start, obviously, right? It's more than just 2 first-round picks. It's going to get a guy like Joe Burrow. But when you're thinking about trying to build this roster, there's a lot of opportunity there. It's a lot of talent. Okay. Other teams that were listed, the Steelers were obviously one of the links. This came from a Steelers publication, but also the Minnesota Vikings. Now, if they trade for Joe Burrow, there's going to be a lot involved in that. So I'm definitely going to need you guys to tell me in the comments what you think about that, and if you feel like the Minnesota Vikings should give up that much capital. They just went through a draft where they had, you guys, like the Vikings only had 2 draft picks or something like that in the entire draft or something like that. It was crazy. Whatever it was crazy. You know what it was. It was not a lot. So I'm curious what you guys think. Let me know on that one. But it's an absolutely wild trade to think about Joe Burrow being a Minnesota Vikings. If Joe Burrow goes to Minnesota, then I think you've got a really good shot to keep Brian Flores in-house. I know that it's not all about Brian Flores. You can find other DCs out there. I'm not saying, I'm not trying to say that everything comes down to Brian Flores, but it does seem like a big deal. And if you can get a future Hall of Fame quarterback talent on your team, oh my goodness. With Kevin O'Connell, dude, that would be absolutely electric. Let me know what you guys think in the comments as always. I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your Thursday night.